I did.
She just booted out apparently. Okay. So she is right.
Taylor.
This young lady, this young guy.
Okay, thank you.
That way.
Mushrooms, sir?
Yeah.
Mushrooms are happy.
This Sunday, Thank you for being present this afternoon, for being part of this crowd. Thank you for being those many arms that are embraced to a family that needs support and care. And thank you for coming in order to honor a friend, a family member, somebody who's been close to us for these years and is gone far too soon in life. I first met Casey in high school 133 years ago, or it feels like it anyway, but he was part of the crowd around, and we knew not to bother him because his father had too much authority at school, and so we let Casey do what Casey wanted. And he was a good man in life, and judging by the number of people who have shown up here on this day, he has affected many lives, and we just want to be able to recognize who he was, remember who he was. We know that there will be grief and the emotions in this building. There will be many different types of emotions, and we will experience them, and we will recognize that they are part of our lives. Some we will learn to let go of, and some we will learn to embrace, and we will walk through these emotions together. We will also remember well, and that's what we want to do on this day. We want to remember well who Casey was. We want to hear his stories. We want to hear how he's infected our lives and made change and just helped us be better people. And we want to also recognize the frailty of life while we're here, and to recognize that this is something that comes unexpected. It's something that comes expected. It's something that we all know in the back of our minds is a direction we are heading. And so we come with a humility and a gratefulness for what we have in each day in order to be able to say that we've lived this day and we wish to live it well and determine what that means in our lives. So I'd like to invite us all just to gather together for these reasons and to be here together and to help each other, and especially to help the family as they go through this difficult day and this difficult season of life. I'm going to lead in a word of prayer, and then we're going to begin by telling a story, and we'll start introducing people who will come up and tell parts of Casey's story. I just have to say this. It was only maybe 2 years ago that I realized Casey was his initials, not his name. I always thought it was his name. I would have spelt it with a C, and that's how he went. So it's good for us to be able to come here and just honor and recognize this young man in our lives. Let's pause for prayer. Father, thank you. Thank you that we have a recognition of life on this day. Thank you that we have a community around us that cares. Thank you that this family has so many friends and so much support right here. And I would ask that on this day they would feel the embrace of this community that shows that they care, and to recognize that there's been a strong affection for Casey and from Casey into this community. Help us then, Lord, to be able to handle this with the strength and courage that we need, and help us to move into this service and into this day in order for just finding our way for the next days, weeks, months, years ahead, that we would follow well. Thank you that we have this time together, and lead us then. Give us comfort from your Spirit. Give us hope from your Son. Give us the embrace of your love. We ask this in Christ's precious name. Amen. First up to begin telling Casey's stories will be his longtime friend, Steve Sharp, who in discussion with him just earlier today, we just recognized that he's been Casey's biggest instigator for trouble and mayhem. And as he comes, I just pray that, I just would ask that he would be able to lead us into his story and to give us this understanding of who Casey was.
Well, I haven't started to cry, so far so good. Thank you, Pastor Dan. As Dan said, my name is Steve Sharp, and I'm a longtime friend of Casey's. It is my great honor to be asked by Mindy and Amberly and Taylor to perform Casey's eulogy or talk a bit about Casey's life. And Casey was born in the Mission Hospital on May 25th, 1957, and he was the second child and first son of Charlie and Audrey McPherson. The hospital must have left a lasting effect on Casey because he bought it and owns it as part of his business portfolio. He was raised in the family home on 5th Avenue, or 5th and Grand, with sister Cheryl and brother Doug. Mission was an amazing place. Holy cow, didn't get too far. Mission was an amazing place to grow up as a kid. You know, you'd wake up in the morning, you'd leave your house and jump on a bike or grab your ball mitt or wherever you were going. It was a small town. Everybody knew you. I kind of got spotted early because I had flaming red hair, but it was just a fabulous town to grow up in. It's still a great town, and I'm happy to still be living here. I've got a couple of notes from Sister Cheryl and Brother Doug that I just read right now. Cheryl, Casey was a typical mischievous little brother, always testing everyone and laughing with a big smile. Sometimes he was in trouble with Mom and Dad. He used his charm and humor in order to not to be punished. Most of the times it worked. At 5 or 6 years old, Casey found a dead snake and brought it home to Mom. Mom told him to throw it away, but he decided it would be a good idea to chase her, and she went into the house screaming. Mom was still screaming, but now louder. Casey was laughing and rolling on the ground. Mom locked herself in the bathroom until, I think she slammed the door on the snake and the head was sticking inside the house. So Mom locked herself in the bathroom until Dad came home and removed the snake, and I'm sure had a few words for Casey. On Mom's side, we had 4 generations living in Mission, our great-grandparents, grandparents, parents, and us kids. And our dad's side, there was 3 generations, so family outings, birthdays, and gatherings for holidays were very important to us all. After dinner, we played many games, and for the most part, Casey was the center of attention, being the fun, goofy self and just having fun. Grandpa Shindy used to give buzz cuts to Casey and Doug, and guess who it took longer for the head to get shaved? Casey's melon. Kind of an interesting note talking about Mission. My dad started working for the CP Rail in 1936, and Casey's grandfather was one of my dad's mentors in the 30s, so kind of a connection there. After some dinners, strangely, Casey disappeared to the bathroom when we had to wash and dry the dishes, then reappeared when Doug and I had them all done. That's a surprise. Casey loved camping and fishing, spending time on the Fraser River sandbanks. In his early teens, Casey and his friend Tim built fiberglass boats in our family garage. Dad had to remind him to keep the doors open for the ventilation so they wouldn't get stoned. I don't think that worked. Some And this I didn't know. Casey played trumpet in the high school band and took piano lessons. I would have asked him to entertain us more over the years if I'd known he was a musician. Had a paper route with McCorm. They shared mission and had their paper routes, and he worked at Overweighty after school. When I think of Casey, I remember a wonderful, smiling little brother, and that was from Sister Cheryl. From Brother Doug, growing up with Casey, he liked to play practical jokes on me a lot. There were times when the sirens would go off and he would tell me that the guys in the white jackets are coming for me and to take me away. Funny thing is that now I've been a firefighter playing with sirens for the 43 years, and the joke was on him. Casey also had my back and would help anyone out who needed a hand. I'm going to miss his smile, laughter at family dinners, and the practical jokes. I love you, brother, and miss you, Brother Doug. Casey went to elementary school at Mission Central and high school at Mission Junior High and Senior High, and his dad was the VP at the junior high. And funny enough, the junior high was 2 blocks this way and the senior high was 2 blocks that way. And funny enough, I met his dad, Charlie, before I met Casey. And I was kind of wandering around, and Charlie had put up some election signs. And I decided, and I got to think the Swanson brothers are with me, but I'm not sure. I think they led me into it. But we decided to kick Charlie's election signs down. So Charlie caught us, and I soon found out that the police station was 2 blocks up the street. Charlie marched us up to the police station and fixed it all up. It was a tough love deal, and the sergeant came out and told us that we could go to jail. And anyway, Charlie marched us back down to the McPherson home, and we put up the sign. So that was my first encounter with Charlie, and he never really held that against me. Casey met the love of his life, Mindy, in high school, and they started dating in grade 12. I asked Mindy if they'd known each other all through high school, and Mindy said they had met in Math 11. And then while we were having our meeting, there was a bit of a conversation around, Mindy said that Casey had to take Math 11 twice. And Taylor said, no, Dad said that was you, Mom. And of course, I thought, who didn't? I thought that was a standard thing. Math 11 basketball. Casey and Mindy graduated high school in 1975, and they bought their first property in 1976, and Casey started land development. Casey was working at the Overweighty warehouse, and Mindy at BC Tel, and they got married Casey and Mindy got married in 1979. They bought the Cedar Valley store in 1980, still working for Overweighty and BC Tel. And this is kind of where Casey and my financial philosophies kind of went different directions. I was working in the north on the tugboats and making crazy big money, and Casey and Mindy were working and running the store. And we both had business portfolios. Mine was cash, and Casey's was buying real estate. And we certainly had different philosophies too, that he bought the real estate and I bought other things. So we were down at Casey and Mindy's place in Palm Springs. This is, I don't know, several years ago, and we were sitting around the kitchen, and I was working Casey over and maybe talking about him being thrifty, and he turned around, and he was fairly mad at me, and he goes, I'll have you know, Mr. Sharp, I was selling penny candy and bubble gum while you were pissing every cent of your money away. Never let me forget that. In 1983, Mindy got a real estate license, and Casey got his in 1988. They both left their jobs at that time, and in 1991, Casey was owner-manager of Realty World Ready Realty. Maybe I got that right. And Casey ran the office with 30 sales staff, and they moved the business into, wouldn't you know it, an office at a building that Casey owned, and ran the office out of there on Main Street. Casey also had 10 or 12 apartments upstairs, and the tenants maybe weren't the richest people, and they kind of didn't look after his stuff. So I can remember when we were playing golf, Casey's phone would be ringing steady because his tenants would be wanting this and doing that. But he did a good job, always was considerate and looked after them. In 1994, Casey sold Realty World to his employees, and Casey started full-time the land development that he started in 1976 and continued through to this present day. In 1984, Casey and Mindy welcomed their beautiful daughter, Amberly. And 1985, their son, Taylor, who is Casey's clone. Growing up, they had a great life, and they had lots of adventures to Palm Springs, and a lot of those adventures were with the Harringtons. They went year after year after year, and there was a story that I phoned Dean to clarify, and he says to me, why are you telling that story? It doesn't have anything, not about Casey, and I think it's about the adventure, Dean. So Mindy and Gail thought they would want a shopping day, so the dads took the kids out in the van, and they went to the zoo, and then they decided they'd get the van washed at the car wash. You know, in California, lots of places they have, you know, the car wash, you pull in and one guy will vacuum and the next guy will get inside and do the windows, and then it kind of goes around in a conveyor type situation. And the kids said they're going to go watch the van go through the car wash. So a while later, the kids come running back and they say, hey, where's the van? There's no van. And so Dean and Casey jump up, and the lady that ran the car wash meets Dean and Kate. It's my old bud sending me a message. So the lady said, we got a problem with your van. It's got a bit of a dent on it. So they wander around and they go to this bank, this steep bank, and here's Dean's van, and it's done a couple of endos, and it's laying on its side at the bottom of a ravine, and poor Brittany's doll was hanging out the window. I kind of broke this up into different things. I'm going to talk about our golf trips. I'm still here. So pretty good so far. I haven't cried. So anyway, our golf trip started in 1983, 40 years ago. And we like to say that helped us as men bond and become better men and better fathers. The wives might think different, but the first one we had was to Port Ludlow, and it was Freddie Moon's stag. And Freddie, the guys, you can thank Freddie later for 40 years of golf trips, and the ladies, if you want to complain to Freddie's your guy. So we had a really diverse crowd in our in the first few years for sure. There was Casey and Freddie and Fred's brother and a few of them. They were the gentlemen of the group, the true gentlemen. And then I was kind of on the other end of things. And there was a few of us there I don't want to mention them, Brad and Meeker, but we kind of made it all caused some issues. But they were great times, and we could drag Casey on our way when we wanted to. The golf trips continue to this day. We would have, I don't know how many trips we'd have, but I'd have to pick my spots to ask my wife, to say, hey, we're going to go on a golf trip. And this went on for several years. And she said to me finally, what is this? Is this the third annual fifth trip or the fifth annual third trip? I can't keep track of all your annual trips. So we had golf trips. We went to Whistler, Victoria, years in Kelowna. And in 1995, Casey and Mindy built a home in Palm Springs at Belmonte Estates. And that kind of became our permanent home for our golf trips. Casey and Dean used to go down for 2 weeks. They would have a group in the first week and a group in the second week. And I was in the second week, and Casey and Dean looked a little worse for wear in the second week, I have to say. When at the house at Casey's place, everybody had a chore to do, some tasks to do, whether it was cooking and cleaning or doing the laundry, and it was a real group effort. And a couple of stories I like to tell is Brother Ken was the laundry guy. So, the caller would go out, hey, I'm doing a load of laundry, and laundry would be flying in all directions, and you'd get the broomstick to put the underwear in. And Casey and I had gone out with our buddy Roger. He couldn't make it today, but Big Rog is about, I'm going to say Rog is 6'5", running 375, maybe 400. So he's a mountain of a man. And if you got on the wrong side of Rog, he would kind of work you over, and it would hurt big time. So Casey and I were out going grocery shopping or whatever, doing Rogers with us, and we come into the garage, and we look up, and here is Brother Ken and Pat McCormick, and they have Roger Wade's shorts on, and both of them are in Roger's shorts. And Casey and I look, and they are just killing themselves laughing, and Big Rog gets out of the car, and he goes, they're dead. They're dead. I'm killing them. So Kenny barricades them. Well, first of all, they split, and they rip Roger's shorts in half. Kenny barricades himself in the laundry room, and Pat locks himself in the bedroom. And of course, Pat, he's a bit aggravating, so Roger wanted to get him first, right? And all you could hear is, Rog, I'm sorry, Rog, I'm sorry, don't hurt me. And Rog go, that's it, McCorm, you're finished. As soon as you come out of there, you're done. So he whimpered for a while, and then you hear, okay, I'm coming out. So Pat comes out, and Rog grabs him, picks him up like a toothpick, and he takes him out in the living room, sorry, Mindy, and he threw him on the couch and kind of went ass over tea kettle. And then he picks him up again, and he carries him out into the pool area and literally has Pat over his head, and he throws him in the pool like this. And Kenny came out of the bedroom and said, sorry, Rog, and that was it for him. As I said, everybody had a chore to do, and I said to Case, Jimmy Shaw and I are gonna take all the cans back, and there was lots of cans. We filled up Mindy's Mercedes, the trunk, the back seat, everything with cans. And so we took them to the depot, and there they always ask you at this one, they always ask you if you'd like to donate. And I said no, and we went over, you drive over, and we picked up the money, and it was like $45. So we're driving back, and I said to Jim, hey, you want to have a little fun with Casey? Sure. I said, tell him we donated the money. So we pull into the house, and Casey's in the hot tub, and the boys are having a swim, and we don't say anything. And a little while, I said, "Wait, Jim, he guaranteed he's going to ask us for sure." So a little while later, he says, "How much money did you get?" I said, "Oh, I don't know. We donated it." What? What? There must have been $35 worth of cans there. And I go, "No, there was 45 actually, Casey." What? And I said, it's on the counter in the kitchen. Our golf trips included Christina Lake. Casey loved Christina Lake. And when we went up there, we had, usually it was, I had a partner, either Brother Ken or Harvey Hurd, and Casey and Steve Horvath, a bad combination, I'm telling you, were the other partners. And Casey had some habits that were quite annoying on the golf course. You know, you'd be standing over a putt and ready to putt, and Casey'd be rattling his pocket, you know, the change in his pocket. You'd look at him, you'd go, "What?" in typical Casey fashion. Or you're just coming down to hit the ball, and he'd speed off in his golf cart. So we were playing a round, and Steve and Casey, we hit the ball. Steve and Casey headed out, and first out, Beetle down there. Casey likes to get out there first and kind of survey the situation. So we're behind him, and he drives up to a golf ball, and he looks at it to identify it. And I think, okay, great, that must be my ball. And then he goes over and parks. Only I didn't realize he'd parked over top of my golf ball. So I go up to the ball that I think in my mind he's identified, and of course I don't identify it, and I hit his ball, and he drives off my ball, and he goes, "What'd you hit my ball for?" There was a typical Casey. We have an annual golf trip to Kelowna every year. It's been going for 22 years. Casey and I joined a bit later, but it happens every year. It was a Ryder Cup match, and we have we play guys from the U.S., and our friend Jeff Norton made his way up from California to attend today and bring his wishes from all our American friends. So thank you for coming up, Jeff. Casey's community involvement and generosity. Casey was extremely generous in our community, and he did this quietly and humbly. He supported the Christmas Bureau every year and donated to the food bank and school meals program. And whenever he saw a need, he helped out. He went into one of the local stores one Christmas, and they had a bin full of gloves on sale. So Casey bought every one of the gloves and took them to the Christmas Bureau. He went to Costco one Christmas, and they had Mac jackets, the quilted jackets, bought every jacket and donated them. And then he got great pleasure as he watched the jackets pop up on Main Street and people wearing them, and it gave him great joy. There was a fellow used to walk from Hatzick to Mission all the time, and always dressed nice hat on, had a spring in his step, and I used to see him all the time. And then a few years later, he was slowing down and really struggling, and I spotted him one day in downtown Mission, and he's driving this brand new scooter, just getting around great. And I was having coffee with Casey a while later, and I mentioned that, and Casey'd gone up to Community Services and bought that scooter for him. Casey also had a side job. He had a company called Mr. Plow, and he would travel around the community plowing everybody's driveways, and he'd go do his businesses first, and then he would go from the hospital on Fifth Street. My wife's parents were elderly, and they had home care coming 4 times a day, and Casey would go down on 4th Street and plow their driveway, and then he would make his way around the community doing the same, and Dean, I don't know how you always got looked after, but he always did your driveway. He was too tired after doing yours to come and do mine. Taylor, you have a big plow to fill now. Casey and Mindy started the McPherson Family Foundation. Casey also sat on the board of the Fraser House Society. And Fraser House, as everyone, not everyone, but is a near and dear to my heart. I can hear my son say, "This is where my dad starts to cry." So Casey, Fraser House Society is, and Deborah Bonfield from Fraser House will speak to it, but Fraser House Society is the outpatient clinic for all our drug and alcohol services in Mission. And I've been on the board for 32 years. And Casey came on the board, I would say, 25 years ago. And there's quite a few people sitting here that have been on the board and still on the board. So I thank them for that. And Casey was just so generous that he gave all the time to Fraser House. And any time that there was a need that we couldn't quite get the funding, Casey would step up and fill the void. So I'm going to try to get through this as best I can. Deep breath. When Casey went into the hospital the first part of August, I was getting set to go. He phoned me and said he had to go. There was an issue. They had some problems with his liver that he had to go into the Abbotsford Hospital, and of course we all thought it was going to get looked after. But he was there for a number of days, and I had gone up to Kelowna a couple of days. I went to visit him on the Sunday, and the Monday I'd gone up to Kelowna, and I'd phoned home on Tuesday morning, and all was well. And then I got a phone call from my son at 10:30 that morning that my wife had fallen, and she was on her way to Abbotsford Hospital. Now, Laura might think this wasn't a blessing, but it was a blessing because we got to spend 6 days in the hospital with Casey and the family, and Laura had to fall down 15 stairs and break her hip in order for that to happen. But she's doing well, and she said, "I took one for the team," and she sure did. I have this might be a little bit tough for me, so you just have to bear with me. I went to see Casey the day before he passed away, and I got to, when I got there, I was, Amberly saw me out the door, and she said, "Just hang on, there was a doctor in to see him." And then Amberly came out to get me and gave me a big hug and said, "Steve, we're praying for a miracle," and which I recognized. And I went in, and there was Mindy and Amberly and Taylor and Casey. So Taylor got up and let me sit by his dad and hold it. Holding Casey's hand and talking to him and just telling him the love that all his friends have sent and what he'd meant to me and to his friends. And, I couldn't help but think, holding his hand, that Casey was the miracle. Sorry, I told you I wasn't going to do this, but I can't help it. And he was in my life, and I know he was in so many lives. He was just this amazing man. And while I was there, I had the honor of having another friend of Casey's come in, and I got up and let him sit in the seat beside Casey, and his name was Eric Jackman. And I'm going to try to read this card, and it was an absolutely beautiful card, and it really summed up how he felt, and I think everybody felt about Casey. So the card said, at the front of the card, it says, "Times change many things, but not the joy that friendship brings." And Eric graciously, allowed us to read this card. "Casey, I am so grateful that I've been able to work with you and for you and to get to know you a little. I respect and admire you for the way you conduct yourself as a man of integrity. You have always been a man of your word with me, and your handshake was your bond. The true success in life is that you will leave this world as a better place because of you being here. I am proud to say that I worked with you and hope that I may call you friend. I leave you with my best wishes and prayers. With all my respect, Eric." And I just thought that was such a touching moment and such an honor to have sat there and listened to another man tell Casey how wonderful he was, and he truly was. Casey is a friend. Casey was a great friend, and everyone that knew him would say that. He was a great listener and cared when you were talking to him. He was a confidant to some, an advisor to some, and a mentor to many. He would use his wisdom he gained over the many years in business and in life to help anyone who asked for it. When our friends heard of Casey's passing, it was quite remarkable. I would be talking to a lot of the guys, and every one of them said that how their friendship with Casey changed their lives. He made them a better person just by being Casey. And, we all have to strive to be better, and we'll do that for Casey. And Dean, Casey thought you were going to take extra work. We will all miss Casey a lot, and make sure that you tell your loved ones you love them, hug people when you can, and above all, book a nice golf trip somewhere or a holiday in Casey's memory. Thank you. Yeah, I didn't even bawl my eyes out that much.
A lot of self-control there, Steve. Thank you for taking that time, putting that together and sharing stories from your own life, letting us hear a bit about Casey through your eyes and through the experiences that you've had. Next, we'd like to ask Gary Tour to come up as well, a longtime business partner as well, and a friend and one close to him, and a mentor in life.
Thank you. We're gathered here today to remember and celebrate the life of Kenneth Charles McPherson, better known as Casey. I'd like to thank the McPherson family for the opportunity to share a few words and memories. My name is Gary Tour, and Casey was more than just a longtime friend. He was a brother to me. They say one brother is better than 1,000 friends. And when it came to Casey, nothing could be more true. Casey and I were not only friends, but we were business partners. And our journey began 35 years ago, back in 1988. where we crossed paths at an open house. Casey had just embarked on a career in real estate. And I asked him, I said, Casey, how many listings do you have? He smirked and replied, not many. Mindy steals them all. Little did I know that little exchange would start a partnership that would span over 3 decades. He often joked, Gary, you're the troublemaker and I'm the peacemaker. And he was right. No one could ever be mad at Casey with his easygoing nature and his ability to just let the little things slide. I can without a doubt say I had the best partner, and I was so blessed to have him in my corner. Casey never led anybody astray. He was genuine, he was honorable, and he was loyal to the core. He never hesitated to go the extra mile to help a friend or even a stranger. But what made Casey truly special was his genuine and infectious love for life. He retired and he wanted to spend his time with his wife, his kids, his grandkids, and enjoy Christina Lake and Palm Springs with his friends. I have many stories, but one sticks out. Back in 1998, we had a meeting with Tony Miniaci, who was the engineer at the city at the time. We needed to discuss exchanging land with the city in order to complete our subdivision. Last minute, something came up, Casey was unable to attend. Before the meeting, he called me, Gary, don't sell the farm. Tony and I met to resolve the matter, and it ended up that we did not need to exchange any lands at all. So I said to Tony, let's play a little prank on Casey. And like Tony, sure, what do you got in mind? I said, well, let's pretend that I traded his property at the top of Cedar Street, which he's owned since 1976, for the piece of land we needed from the city. About 30 minutes later, Casey called me up to see how the meeting went. And I said, oh, it was great. Wonderful. He goes, well, what did you guys agree upon? I said, well, that property that you got at the top of Cedar, I swapped it. There was silence on the other side of the phone. And about 10 seconds later, he says, Gary, you did what? I said, yeah, it was really easy. I swapped it. Well, I've owned that property since 1976. And you go to a meeting one time on your own and you sell my property? Well, guess what? You have to deal with Mindy now. Click. So then Tony calls me back about 2 minutes later. He said, hey, I'm at the office and Casey's called me 3 times. And I said, what'd you do? He goes, well, I never answered. I knew it was time to let Casey in on the joke. So I called him. And he wasn't saying anything. I could hear him breathing. Casey, hello? Hello, Casey? And about 10 seconds later, he goes, what? I said, Casey, buddy, it was just a joke. Gary, you and Tony may think this is really funny, but I'm at the age where I'm prone to a heart attack, and you guys are gonna give me one. We laughed about it for years. I think it really scared him because every time we went to a meeting, even years later, he would remind me, do not sell any of my properties. Casey was honest, he was sincere, he was incredibly smart, handsome, and he was one heck of a good dancer. He lives on through his beautiful family where we can remember this extraordinary man. We all have the privilege of knowing and loving. Casey and Mindy have raised two extraordinary children who emulate the kindness and the wisdom and warmth of Casey. Casey McPherson was truly one-of-a-kind soul. There will never be another Casey McPherson. While we mourn his passing, let's also celebrate the life of this incredible person we all have the blessing of knowing. Casey, words will never express how much love and respect I have for you. Rest easy, my friend. Thank you.
Somehow I get a feeling these friends are kind of mean to Casey in life, but they're all playing jokes on him. Next on our list is Dougal Schuin, and I believe he's here somewhere, but if not, here he is. Dougal is, again, a longtime friend and business associate, and we'll get him.
Thank you. As Pastor Dan has said, my name is Dougal Schuin. And when Steve approached me to say a few words on behalf of Mindy and the family today, I was absolutely honored. There is no better person to be your friend than Casey McPherson, and I am so very proud to say that Casey was my friend. To me, Casey was not only a great friend, but an extremely valued business associate. I valued and welcomed his advice and forever enjoyed his great wit and sense of humor. I first met Casey in the early 1990s when he had his Realty World franchise in Mission and I had mine in Langley. On our first interaction was a broker-owner meeting held at Semiahmoo Resort in Blaine in Washington. Casey and I happened to be paired together for our first of many games of golf. As I was preparing to enter the pro shop, out marches Casey. Now, we all know Casey was a pretty sharp dresser, and this day was no exception, other than his nice new slacks were about 2 sizes too small. Very much unlike Casey, he had arrived at the course without what Semiahmoo required as proper golf attire, and so he had to buy a pair of slacks. And as he was forced to purchase these slacks, and the only size available was about 2 sizes too small. So, however, there was no way Casey was going to have this situation separate him from a game of golf. So off we went to the first tee, very snug fitting slacks and all. Sometime in early 1993, Casey heard that I was exploring the possibility of starting a mortgage investment corporation, or a MIC, as it is more commonly known. Ultimately, Casey was attracted by what he saw and joined in. Casey was one of the first shareholders, and in fact, I actually have his original share certificate, which happens to be Lucky 7. In 1994, when VWR had its first annual general meeting, Casey offered his valued business acumen as the corporate secretary and director. Casey was not only a director for 30 years, but served on the credit committee for nearly all those 30 years. As well, over the past 30 years, I believe Casey has missed only one annual general meeting, and it was due to inclement weather. On February 16, 1994, VWR started by raising approximately $250,000, which was subsequently placed in mortgages. Today, VWR is in the top 10 of private mortgage investment corporations in Canada for assets under management. Casey was an extremely valuable and significant part of VWR's success in the beginning and even to this very day. Casey had a tremendous business acumen. He was highly regarded and extremely respected around VWR's boardroom table. His invaluable contributions will be greatly missed, and it will be no easy task to replace his skill and knowledge. In the early days of VWR, business wasn't always, shall we say, as perfect. Shall we say, there was a learning curve. At one point, VWR ended up foreclosing on a property in Hope and ultimately taking ownership. During this process, Casey and I must have made at least 4 trips together to Hope. And during these trips, I learned a lot about my friend. I learned that my friend had a spiritual side and how important it was to him. I learned that a golf game was not about winning or money, but about the friendship. I learned how very proud he was of both Amberly and Taylor, and how very much he loved you both. I learned how deeply he loved you, Mindy, how he adored you, and that you were the forever love of his life. As our friendship evolved, I very quickly learned how generous and charitable both Mindy and Casey were. Whenever my wife, Lori, and I were looking to fill a table for a local fundraiser, we could always count on the McPhersons. On one occasion, the 4 of us traveled to Vancouver to the Park Hotel for the Women of Distinction Gala sponsored by the YWCA. On this particular evening, Mindy, being her generous and charitable self, was successful in securing a significant number of silent auction items. The drawback was that the 4 of us couldn't carry all the items to the parkade. Now, this didn't deter Casey. He stated that this was not an uncommon problem when he and Mindy attended such events, and that he would return. With that said, he flittered off, leaving the 3 of us with Mindy's silent auction items. Well, about 5 minutes later, but who do I see coming down the hall? It's Casey, and he's pushing a Costco flatbed type cart. But that's not all I see. Right behind Casey is another cart being pushed by a Park Casino Hotel security guard. Thus, we had our own private escort, security escort, to our vehicle in the parkade. And oh yes, albeit snug, we got everything into the vehicle. Truly, one of Casey's greatest qualities, it's been mentioned here today, was his generosity and his passion and love for his community. Casey deeply believed that one should be charitable, and he religiously practiced that belief. We all know what a great sense of humor and wit Casey possessed. Also times, we also knew how practical he could be. Now, does anyone know what this is? This is known by the general population as a large binder clip. But to Casey, do any of you know what it was? Money clip. Very good. Very, very good. So on this particular day, we were having lunch, and as Casey was in the process of paying the bill, he pulled out his large binder clip with cash, credit cards, and his driver's license all snugly clamped in there. When I inquired why he wasn't using a regular money clip, he went on to show me the virtues and explain the cost savings of using a large binder clip versus a money clip. Again, vintage Casey. In August of 2019, my wife Lori and I purchased a home in Indio, California. Our deciding reason to purchase was that Casey and Mindy were going to be our neighbors. Over those past 4 years, our friendship has flourished. We have had lots of great fun with many happy tears. During the past 4 years, I would often be sitting out on our patio deck in Indio, and I could hear the sound of a bicycle bell, and lo and behold, but who would come around the corner but Casey? He would be on his bike, with his bike helmet securely fastened on his head. He would be ringing his bell, waving frantically and calling out, "Howdy, neighbor." When Lori and I return to Indio this winter, the first thing I will do is go sit on the patio and wait and listen for Casey to come around the corner ringing his bell. I will never forget you, my friend. Thank you.
Thank you, Dougal. I will never need such a large clip for my pocket. I think Steve has mine over there on his paper. It looks like a regular paper clip would be big enough. So next for us to hear and understand Casey's involvement in the community comes from Deborah Bonfield, who's a longtime Fraser House councillor, for which Casey sat on the board.
Hi. I wanted to focus in on what Casey has left behind. I remember once saying to him, "You have no idea what sitting on the board of Fraser House has done for this community and outside this community." Casey has been on our board for over 25 years. I've worked at Fraser House for over 30 years, long time. And he once asked me, he said, "How come you're not retired?" And I said, "Well, when I'm not having fun and I don't enjoy my job, that'll be the day I retire." He says, "Yeah, it's kind of like me." You know, so that was always one thing that stuck in my brain. One thing he really enjoyed is he really enjoyed listening to the stories of our clients. At Christmas, we would have a wonderful Christmas dinner, and at the end of the dinner, people would say how much Fraser House and the people who worked for it and donated their time gave to this community. When I last went to see Casey in the hospital, the day before he died, I thanked him so much for the lives that he has saved. He has saved hundreds of lives. And he was quite taken aback when I said that. And I said, "You know, without the guys at the top, wheeling and dealing and doing all the stuff we hate to do, we wouldn't be able to help as many people." So I thought I would share a few of those stories with you that Casey just, at the end of them, just went, "Wow, I had no idea." So as you know, Fraser House is a nonprofit agency that helps people with addictions and people who are affected by addictions. So we're in the schools, elementary and high school and middle schools. We're in the rec center at times. I told Casey a story once. I said, "I had one of the best counseling sessions ever today." And he said, "Well, weren't you in your office?" I said, "No, I was in a 4x4. The guy couldn't talk, but once he got behind the wheel of a car, he never shut up." And Casey said, "Yeah, I can relate to that." He has saved children who have been brought back to their families, and which would have been taken away permanently had they not come to Fraser House. He has saved marriages. He was very surprised to hear that. Lots of marriages break up because of addictions. He has saved people's health. People don't take care of themselves a lot because of their addictions. So they start to do self-care. And he was just blooming after he heard these stories. He'd always say, "Is there somebody else going to have another story for this Christmas dinner?" We always had somebody. It always, and Steve wasn't the only person who cried. Casey's job was kind of bringing the Kleenex to Steve most of the time, you know, and boy, did he need them at some of those talks that some of our clients have had. He was magical. 25 years, can you imagine the time that he took out of his day to go to those meetings? He was nearly at every one. I think I could count on one hand the number that he missed. He had a passion for helping. And I really think that he and his wife, Mindy, have been part of the soul of our place, really part of the soul. Just before he died, we had a really good laugh. I happen to be from Belfast, Northern Ireland, and I got a call that he was in the hospital, and my heart, as you notice, I don't write anything down. Everything that I'm saying is just coming from my heart. And one of the things, when I went to the hospital to see him, that we Irish do is when we really feel, we kiss. Oh my God, do we kiss? And we don't just do a little peck on the cheek, full lips on. And when I saw him, I just gave him a great big smackaroo. What did he do? He rolled his eyes, looked at Mindy, and went, wow. People asked, why did I go? I don't know why I went. I got a call from Cynthia, our director, that he wasn't well and he was in the hospital. And something just gave me the message. Go say goodbye, hurry up, get there. So I went. And he said that Fraser House was such a big part of his life. It just gave him times when he was down and he thought things were rough mentally, business-wise, whatever. He could rise out of it so quickly when he thought how many people were worse off. I thought, wow, yeah, that's so true. And I just want to say thank you to his family, because I know when he gave us time, he could have been with you guys, and he didn't. He took a slice. It's a slice of his life that I don't think many people understand. Without that, there would be so many less people with such dire circumstances. And without him being there, those people wouldn't have been helped. We wouldn't have been supported as a team. And he is keeping his memory alive in those people that walk upon the earth here in Mission, really. For every child he saved, for every marriage he saved, for every person who can now lift up their head and get a job. I mean, without the work that he's done, and Mindy, they supported our golf tournament every single year, every year. And he was out there laughing and, you know, with Steve and all the rest of the gang, Tony, having a good old laugh on the course, having a yummy dinner afterwards. And then we would tell him what he'd done. And I'm very pleased to say that one of the things he passed on is his son Taylor is going to take his place on the board. So I'm very thankful for that. I'd just like to say that he was a magical person. He brought laughter and caring and time to hundreds of people, hundreds, 25 years, if not thousands of people have benefited from his heart. And that's what it was, his heart. He felt heartfelt when he gave us this time. He will be dearly missed. He will be dearly missed. There was a man that still walks today collecting bottles from First Nations out to, I think it's called Omen Road out in Hatzick Prairie, in Drosh, sorry. And that man had a coat hanging on his door Christmas Eve, and he said, "Who paid for that?" We just kept our mouth shut. You know who paid for that. He wears that coat every winter. Doesn't know who gave it to him. Everybody thought that he was a person that needed time and respect. And this man has been clean and sober this year for 16 years. And I'll tell you, Casey was a big part of that. Quietly behind the scenes. And I can't be more than grateful like that. I really can't. I just think he was a wonderful addition to our life, and he's left a lot of people behind in more positive circumstances. Thank you.
Thank you, Deborah. Appreciate those kind words. And I'm curious why Steve was now booking a tour to Ireland after those customs. Yeah. Amberly and Taylor want to come up and say some words about Dad and just share from their hearts what their father has meant to them.
Good afternoon. This room is filled with some of our favorite people. Thank you for joining us.
That was water, by the way. This is yours. All right. Good afternoon. Thank you all for joining us here today. This is my sister Amberly. Some of you know her as Am. I'm Taylor. Casey's our dad. When Amberly read me her speech for the first time, I was like, how am I going to follow that? So we argued about who was going to go last, and I joked that she was going to be the caboose. Then, this week, she said, do you want to do our speech together? I was honored. Plus, she'd already written a majority of it, so it was a win-win. But that's what family's for, people to lean on in a time of need. And we're here to support each other the way we always did as kids. You taking the lead, and me in tow.
Well, that's the thing, Taylor. My life was forever changed when you were born. I had a new purpose to look out for you. The meaning of family was instilled in us at a very young age. Us standing up and doing this together is what family's all about. I don't think we were designed to do life alone, and especially in really difficult times like this. We need to draw near to one another. And I think you said it best. There's no such thing as a one-man wolf pack.
Our dad was all about making memories, not only with his family, but with his friends, and really anybody he met. Speaking of memories, at my wedding, I'm sure he had an elaborate speech planned, but all he got out were 4 words. We're just so happy. And that was it. In emotional times, he was a man of few words, but that's all he needed to get his message across, because his emotions spoke louder than his words.
He really did make the most of every moment. One of my favorites was when he walked me down the aisle, but first he said, let's go make a memory. Today we're going to speak to our dad's character, love, and where he is now.
So, apparently, Amberly has quite the knack for writing. She wrote this note to my dad when she was younger for Father's Day. Thankfully, our mom was able to find it, and turns out it was not hidden. It was on display. My dad kept it all these years. He's a pretty sentimental guy, if you didn't know, and that's where we get it from.
My father is someone who has accomplished many levels of success in his life. With his various achievements, he remains a simple realist who understands and is practical. He has the secret to a winning personality. My dad is admirable and someone I find myself looking up to. He is there to give me reassurance and comfort me through the hard decisions in my life. My dad is my best friend, and I adore him with all my heart because of everything he is. He's my dad. As you can tell, even as a child, it didn't take long to capture the essence of our dad.
These words, many years later, still ring true. It was always explained to us by Dad, the meaning of success. Genuinely, the thought of success is a measurement of monetary achievements and material possessions. But success is more than that. It's actually about focusing on creating meaningful relationships and experiences, as well as making an impact. Casey accomplished it all. He made meaningful relationships and experiences, and definitely made an impact in this world.
Our dad was practical, humble, and he had this personality that was captivating. Our dad was one of those people that if you met him, you wanted more. He had this infectious, charismatic, engaging, sincere, and genuine finesse about him. Not to forget, he was an incredibly thoughtful person.
You could say our dad had a certain je ne sais quoi. He had this humor. He was so fun, not taking himself too seriously, but had this level of expertise and professionalism that when he spoke or gave advice, you couldn't help but not listen to him. This is a balance that is extremely hard to achieve, and he mastered it. We admired him, looked up to him. He was our best friend, but not only to us, but to many others too. And he leaves behind an amazing legacy.
Indeed. Our dad has been referred to by others as a gift. He made us better, gave us inspiration, was legendary, fair, encouraging, one of a kind, a rare gem, an absolute beauty, larger than life, and he made this world a better place. He was all these things to us, but it is so meaningful that he was this to so many others too.
He made his impact. He loved his community and gave back his time and financial support wherever possible. He created a foundation in the McPherson name, donated blood. If he saw someone in need, he'd give a helping hand, offer a ride, cut your grass, plow your driveway, run you errands, irregardless of whatever. He was always there to help and never ignore. He did things on his own merit and never looked for credit or reward for his efforts. He had the same character you know Casey McPherson for right until the very end. He was strong, selfless, and held us when we were weak and didn't want to let him go. To have spent a single minute with him would have been a blessing, but we got a lifetime, and we are so thankful to call him our dad.
Incredibly proud to call him our dad. Quoting Maya Angelou, she said, "I've learned that people will forget what you said. People will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel." Our dad made us feel loved unconditionally. He told us he loved us all the time, getting off the phone, parting ways, or just because. We never questioned that love. It never needed to be reaffirmed. We felt that love, not by his words, but by his actions. He had endless amounts of time for us and our conversations, time to celebrate our successes, and he was a soft place to land. He would listen to every time we would say, "Dad, I got an idea." He was our steady hand, our comforter, and he made us feel safe.
He taught us about work ethic, integrity, keeping our word, showing up for people, to be vulnerable, and to keep it real. Our dad was a huge fan of music, and dancing was encouraged in our household. His big lesson was the golden rule, to treat others the way you want to be treated. This is something that he passed down from my Grandpa Charlie, and something we're continuing to teach our families.
Our dad taught us how to be a good parent that is loving, empathetic, engaging, present, and to invest our time into our kids, and grandkids for that matter, just like he did. He taught us the value of being a good spouse. Marriage is a relationship worth working hard at. We witnessed our parents' beautiful love. Our parents started dating as teenagers and married at 21. Dad's care, concern, and love for our little mama was so evident. He really adored her, and they shared this love for one another. They worked incredibly hard and created their successes together. They were self-made. When Dad had treatment, a doctor's appointment, or anything going on, Mom was there. Our dad put us on standby a couple times with Mom not feeling well, but she always pulled through. Our dad had a lineup of people wanting to help in this capacity, but he never needed one. Our Mom was always there. We are privileged to have their example.
We love you, Mom. And we know you'd give away everything to have him back.
The day before our dad passed, we were still in an effort to try to figure out what was going on. We found out the cancer that we thought had been successfully removed from his kidney had spread to his liver. He was asked if he was scared to die, and he said no. Am and I have been working on it. Some of you may know I've been a Christian for many years now, but our dad recently asked Jesus into his heart. So my dad found comfort, our dad found comfort, knowing where he was going. And we have peace knowing that he's in heaven and we will get to see him again. See, the thing is, we don't get a free pass because of our good deeds. If anyone was going to get a free pass, I believe it would have been our dad. He was the most exemplary person. Practically perfect, unflawed. He did all the things, but we aren't saved on our deeds. It's a matter of the heart. Death seems so final, but it doesn't have to be. Jesus takes the sting out of death because with him we never die. We get to live in an eternity in a place where there's no pain, no suffering, and we get to be together in heaven.
We know our dad is not alone. He's with Grandpa Charlie and Grandma Audrey. I had a vision a few days before he passed. I saw him. He had a nice pair of white Adidas sneakers on. And he was running towards my grandma and grandpa as if he were a kid, and they were there to welcome him with open arms. We have insight he's living in his kind of heaven, at the most amazing property with the most beautiful gardens, incredible lake, and farmland. He's on to his next big adventure. Our dad said to our mom the morning before he passed, all he wanted for us was to have peace. That's what he wanted to leave us with, and we're finding it, Dad. Peace beyond understanding. Our dad's love is with us always and will never die or fade away. Our dad's time here was cut way too short, but I feel like my dad was a time traveler. Not only did he make the most of his time with us, but he was able to somehow spread his time between anyone close to him and make them feel special too. He taught us a lifetime worth of lessons, but we know there was so much more he could teach us, and those conversations are what we'll miss the most.
God had a plan to take him home. His plans are always good, so we will trust in that even though we don't understand it. You have heard the saying, the good die young. He was one of the good ones. To my beautiful dad up in heaven, may the Lord bless you and take good care of you. May the Lord smile on you and be gracious to you. May the Lord look on you with favor and give you peace. Thank you, Jesus, for blessing us with our beautiful dad. As my daughter Lola said, this isn't goodbye, just simply see you later. Because we know we will see your infectious smile and be held in your loving arms one day in heaven. I love you, Dad.
I love you, Dad.
While we're up here, I want to use this time to extend the most heartfelt thank you on behalf of our family for the overwhelming support. The love, prayers, hugs, flowers, the tough phone calls, handwritten cards, thoughtful messages, and meals prepared for our family. It has truly been amazing and the biggest blessing that is helping us to get us through. Also, thank you to everyone who traveled here from far and wide to be here. It is beyond appreciated.
Steve. A special thank you for writing our dad's eulogy. and all the special words, memories, and experiences shared. You are the definition of a great friend. Gary, Dougal, Deborah, your desire to come up and say something about my dad shows how highly you thought of him. We know coming up to speak is difficult, but it's the greatest gesture you could ever offer our family. So thank you. Also, thanks to Michael at Woodlawn, Tammy at Magnolias, George from the Clark Theater, Linda at Over the Top Catering, and Pastor Dan. We appreciate all your efforts in making this day significant and special. Thank you. And Kristen, my wife. Thank you for creating the surface cards and the video tribute. Pa would be proud.
He would. We are thankful for all of you being here with us today as we celebrate our dad's extraordinary and very full life. Prior to his passing, our dad told me how much he loved his life. And you can tell he did when you look at these treasured photos. So with that, please enjoy this video tribute. We love you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
deciding what to do. Oh, that talk of opportunities, TV breaks and movies rang true, sure and true. Seems it never rains in Southern California. Seems I've often heard that kind of talk before. It never rains in California, but girl, don't they warn ya, it pours, man, it pours. Out of work, I'm out of my head. Out of self-respect, I'm out of breath. I'm underloved, I'm underfed. I wanna go home. It never rains in California, but girl, don't they warn ya, it pours, man, it pours. Will you tell the folks back home I nearly made it? Had offers but don't know which one to take. Please don't tell them how you found me. Don't tell them how you found me. Give me a break. Give me a break. Seems it never rains in Southern California. Seems I've often heard that kind of talk before. It never rains in California, but girl, don't they warn ya, it pours, man, it pours. Thank you for being a friend. Travel down a road and back again. Your heart is true, you're a pal and a confidant. I'm not ashamed to say, I hope it always will stay this way. My hat is off, won't you stand up and take a bow? And if you threw a party, invited everyone you knew, stand up and take a bow. And when we both get older, with walking canes and hair of gray, have no fear, even though it's hard to hear. I will stand here close and say thank you for being a friend. I wanna thank you. Thank you for being a friend. I wanna thank you. Thank you for being a friend. I wanna thank you. Thank you for being a friend. I wanna thank you. Let me tell you about a friend. I wanna thank you. Thank you for being a friend. I wanna thank you. Thank you for being a friend. I wanna thank you. Thank you for being a friend. And when we die and float away into the night, the Milky Way, you hear me call as we ascend. I'll say your name, then once again, thank you for being a Thank you for being a friend. I wanna thank you. Thank you for being a friend. I wanna thank you. Thank you for being a friend. I wanna thank you. Thank you for being a friend. People, let me tell you about a friend. I wanna thank you. Thank you for being a friend. I wanna thank you. Thank you for being a friend. I wanna thank you. Thank you for being a friend. Oh, tell you about a friend right now. Thank you for being a friend. Thank you for being a friend. Thank you. Thank you for being a friend.
A lot of life in just a few pictures, just to be able to share that. As we bring this to a close, a conclusion, let me just read a passage from Scripture about the season that we're in right now, the season that you feel yourself in. Though the fig tree should not blossom, nor fruit be on the vines, the produce of the olive fail, and the fields yield no food, the flock be cut off from the fold, there be no herd in the stalls. Yet I will rejoice in the Lord. I will take joy in the God of my salvation. The God, the Lord, is my strength. He makes my feet like the deer's. He makes me tread on high places. It's peculiar that a person comes to a funeral to learn lessons of life and living. Yet that's predominantly what we do. We've heard Casey's story, and soon we will be walking from this over to there's a time of gathering together. There's refreshments for us. There will even be opportunity for people to share what's on their hearts. We will move from here, and there will be a sense of finality for Casey, and a recognition that we had that way. The Bible passage regards loss and the future with a mix of reality and hope. that the days of retirement that we're in, right? Mindy, you and I just had that very short conversation. This is retirement. Time to begin, time to enjoy. And yet the fig tree does not blossom. There is not there. Yet there is hope. It's normal to feel emotion of sorrow over loss. We've done that since we were children. It's part of life to wrestle with emotions and not accept easy answers with the questions that we have, and to recognize that there's things we don't know. We have to grow. It's also part of maturing to learn to deal with loss in such a way that we look for hope in our future. And you will look for hope. You will continue to look for hope. Not just live in the pain of loss, but to find hope in children, grandchildren, friends, family, community around, opportunity to help those who are struggling in the community. You're right in looking to your memories for hope and comfort as you realize the loss of Casey, someone whom you have loved so dearly. You will be equally as right if you look to God for hope for the future, for what will come yet. God always provides assurance that this is not the end for his children. And so we come to this point, this place of conclusion, to say that we look for hope. We look for answers, and may we each find that hope in our Savior Jesus. May we each find that hope in the opportunity that God gives each one of us. We are going to close here. We're going to move from this location of the building. The cafeteria is just around the corner. All are invited to come and to share story with family. And let me just say that sharing story is our way of finding comfort for this day and for the years ahead, to be able to share story and memory. Class reunions will come from high school. If Casey was born in '57, his reunion is next year. Share stories. Be part of that. Oh, sorry, I shouldn't say next year. It's 2 years for him, for his grad reunion. But share those stories, those of you who are part of that. Be in there and share them. I want to just close with a word of prayer, and then we will move from here. Father, I just wish to thank you for the memories, for the comfort, for this opportunity to hear the stories and to be part of this life at this point. Thank you for giving us a sense of comfort that comes from a gathered community, but may we find that true eternal comfort that comes when we recognize your embrace as well. Thank you, Father, for Casey, for who he's been. And now as we move from here, may that grace that we find in Jesus Christ, may that continued presence of you with us in your Holy Spirit, and may that love of a Father who truly loves us follow us, even as it embraces Casey. May it embrace us in this day and in the days ahead. We thank you for this, Father, in Christ's name. Amen. Very quickly here, the attendants will help the family leave first. We're going to ask them to escort the family out. And then following that, all are invited to come join over in the cafeteria.
Thank you.